So can you really live in the Philippines for $1,000 a month? Well, technically, yes. Realistically, well, let me show you my actual budget living here in Cebu. We're going to compare it to what I spent in the US and explain why those $1,000 per month videos might be a bit misleading. And by the end of this one, you'll know exactly what it really costs to live comfortably here. Hey there, welcome back to my channel, Mr. Wright in the Philippines. I'm Rick Wright if you're new here, and I want to take a moment and wish a very happy Thanksgiving to those of you that are watching back in the US. And today we're talking about the elephant in the room, the cost of living. I've seen a million questions online before, and I know you've seen those videos claiming that you can live in the Philippines for, $500 a month, $1,000 a month, $1,200 a month. And technically, they're not actually lying, but they're also not telling you the whole truth either. In this video, I'm going to show you my real monthly expenses that living here in Cebu City, not budget backpacker living out in the province, but actual comfortable expat living. Then I'm going to compare it to what I actually spent in the US. And finally, I'll break down what the different budget levels actually get you here. You know me, there's no clickbait, just honest information, honest numbers. But before we get started, a quick note before we dive right in. If you're new here, I share honest, real life stories about my life in the US and, what it's like building a life here in the Philippines as an expat. And, if that resonates with you, then, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. I post new videos every couple of days and it's actually free. And I also want to give a very special thank you to all my super fans out there for your contributions and your gifts. And, if you enjoy this video, then you can show your appreciation by hitting the thanks button in the bottom right corner and leaving a gift as well. It really does help me to be able to provide content and produce more videos like this for you. So, and thank you again to all my subscribers. It's just been overwhelming lately with the number of views and your comments, and it's just been heartwarming and just amazing. So thank you very much. So let's get into it. All right, let's address this right away. Yes, you can live in the Philippines for $1,000 per month. But is that actually living? Well, here's what that actually looks like. Here's the $1,000 per month reality. Your rent. It's going to run you somewhere between 8,000 to 12,000 pesos, which is about $140 to $200 a month. You're going to get a small studio or a room, maybe a small house 20 to 30 minutes outside the city center, a basic building, no amenities, and probably not furnished or maybe semi-furnished. It's going to probably be older construction as well. Your food is going to run you about 10 to 12,000 pesos per month, which is 175 to 200. You're going to be eating almost entirely local Filipino food, or maybe from carenderias, which are local eateries each day, minimal Western food, and you're going to be cooking most of your meals at home. You might eat street food regularly as well. Electricity is going to run you 2,000 to 3,000 pesos a month, which is $35 to $50 a month. You're going to be using mostly fans, not AC, or maybe AC only at night for a few hours while you're sleeping. But you're also going to be very conscious about how you use it each month. Water is going to run you about 200 to 300 pesos, which is about $3 to $5. That's really not an issue. Water is cheap here. Transportation is going to run you 2,000 to 3,000 pesos per month, and that means you're going to be taking mostly jeepneys and tricycles, very few grabs or taxis, and you're going to be walking a lot unless you have a motor or a scooter. Entertainment or social life, maybe 3,000 to 5,000 pesos per month, which is about $50 to $85 a month, but that's minimally going out, just doing local activities, maybe hanging out at the beach, no bars or clubs, regularly. Your miscellaneous expenses are 2,000 to 3,000 pesos a month, and that is going to include your cell phone, maybe toiletries, or any unexpected costs. So your total is about 55 to 60,000 pesos a month, which is about 970 to 1050 a month. So yes, it is possible, but you're living very basically. You're eating mostly local food, almost exclusively. You're not really using AC all that much, and you're not really going out that much. You're not You're not living in the city center, and you're probably going to be sacrificing a lot of Western comforts. And is that sustainable for most foreigners long term? Honestly, probably not. And that's perfectly fine, but let's just be honest about it at least. So what do I really spend each month? So let me show you my actual monthly expenses living here in Cebu City. Now, this is considered comfortable expat living, not luxury, but it's also not bare bones either. My rent is 50,000 pesos per month, which is about 880 per month, and I can already see it in the comments. That's expensive, that's too much, you can find cheaper, I pay this, my friend pays that. Yes, you can find cheaper, but it all depends on what you want. So what I get here is a very nice 2-bedroom, 2-bath condo in a high-rise building in downtown Cebu. I have a gym, I have a pool, I have 24/7 security. It's a very modern building, very well maintained, and it includes my internet. It also is fully furnished, it's safe and very walkable. And I pay this much because I value location. I'm in the heart of the city, I can walk to the mall, I can take a 5-minute taxi to see my friends, and I want amenities. Gym and a pool matter to me. Quality matters. I don't want maintenance issues. I don't want to deal with those headaches. Could I pay less? Absolutely. If you live 20 to 30 minutes, maybe an hour outside the downtown, or, maybe you just want a studio, then yes, you can get a very nice place for 15 to 25,000 pesos, which is about 265 to 440. But I choose convenience and quality. So yeah, I'm going to pay a little bit more. My electricity runs about 5,000 pesos per month, which is about $100, which I know is high, but the Philippines has some of the highest electricity costs in all of Southeast Asia. It's hot and it's humid here year-round. There's no winter breaks. I run the AC often because I work at home, so I have it on in the living room, and then I put the bedroom on at night when I go to sleep. And again, I'm not going to apologize for that. Comfort matters to me. Again, could I pay less? Absolutely. If I use ceiling fans or regular fans without, the AC is so much, then yeah, I could probably cut it down to maybe 3,000 pesos. But again, I'm not going to prioritize, saving a few bucks over being comfortable. Water is going to run about 200 pesos a month, which is about $3 to $4 a month. Water here is dirt cheap, so that's really not an issue. My food runs about 10 to 15,000 pesos a month, which is about $175 to $250 a month. And this includes, again, I'm single, so I'm only feeding myself. If you have a partner or a family, keep that in mind. I cook most of my meals at home. I do eat out regularly. I mix in some local food with, Western food. I do eat occasional local meals at the carinderias. But I also sprinkle in, Western restaurants or a nicer Filipino place, which is going to run you about 300 to 800 pesos per meal. I buy most of my groceries at the supermarket, except I get my vegetables at the market. So, the reality is, if I ate only local food, I could cut this to probably 8 to 10,000 pesos. If I ate Western food all the time, that's going to probably balloon up to 25 or 30,000 or even more pesos per month. So I'm right in the middle. I do enjoy Filipino food, but occasionally I want a pizza. I want some pasta. I want some good Italian or a burger or a nice steak. And I'm going to treat myself. Transportation costs about 1,000 pesos a month, which is about $18. And, this is low because, again, I live downtown and I walk most places, or it's just a very short taxi ride to go meet my friends. I don't own a car. But if you live outside the city or you're going to be traveling more, then probably want to budget maybe 3,000 to 5,000 pesos per month. My entertainment and social costs are about 5,000 to 7,000 pesos per month, which is about $90 to $125. And, this includes going out with friends, hanging out at the bar, listening to music, maybe the occasional restaurant. I'm not dating right now, but, if you were dating, that would be included there. Or maybe just some random stuff. This varies hugely based on your lifestyle. If you're very social and you go out a lot, then maybe 10,000 to 15,000 pesos is more your budget. Or if you're a homebody, then maybe 2 to 3,000 pesos is realistic for you. And then my miscellaneous expenses are probably 3 to 5,000 pesos a month. And that includes my cell phone bill, having a load from my phone, toiletries, and any unexpected costs, or just random purchases if I need something here or there. So my total monthly costs are about 74 to 81,000 pesos, which is about 1,300 to about $1,450 US monthly. And that's my reality. It's not 1,000, but it's not 2,500. It's right in the range. And honestly, I live very comfortably. I'm not sacrificing much. I have AC when I want it. I eat well. I go out and spend time with my friends, and I really enjoy my life here. Now, could I cut my costs? Sure, but I don't want to. This budget gives me a great quality of life, and I'm very happy with this, and it's comfortable for me. So there's no sense in me having to sacrifice just to save a few pennies. So now back in the US, I lived in Miami. So now let's compare what I pay here in the Philippines to what I spent living in the US before I moved. So my rent in Miami was about $1,500 a month. And what I had was a one-bedroom apartment in a decent neighborhood. Not too upscale, nothing too fancy, just a normal average apartment. There was no gym, but there was a pool, and I had my own parking space. To get something comparable to what I have here in Cebu, in Miami, would cost me $2,500 to $3,500 per month easily. And it probably wouldn't have been furnished, probably wouldn't have had a pool or a gym. My condo here, for $880 a month would cost at least $2,500 a month in Miami minimum. Electricity in Miami ran me about $150 to $250 a month, depending on the time of year. And that's expensive, but I run AC constantly. Miami is hot, just like it is here. And I did have a bigger space than what I have here. There, we also have appliances, which uses up a lot more electricity. My Philippine electric bill is actually very comparable to what I paid in Miami, which actually surprised me. I expected it to be cheaper, but then again, the Philippines has, the highest per kilowatt hour cost in all of Southeast Asia, but my place is smaller, so it evens out. Food in Miami was about $600 to $1,000 a month, and this covers me cooking home most days, buying groceries at the local Publix or Trader Joe's or whatever local supermarket, maybe eating out 2 to 3 times a week, hanging out with friends, and even cooking at home. Food is still expensive. I paid probably $400 to $600 a month on groceries, and then eating out was maybe another $200 to $400 per month. Here in the Philippines, I spend maybe $175 to $250 per month, and I eat much better. We have fresh food, we have vegetables, tropical fruits, local cuisine. It's much cheaper, it's healthier, fresher, and it's much more interesting, that's for sure. Transportation in Miami was about $700 to $900 a month. I had a very nice car. My car payment was about $450 a month. Gas was $150 to $250 a month. Car insurance was about $100 to $150 a month. Maintenance, was another maybe $50 to $100 a month. In Miami, owning a car is expensive, and it's necessary because, public transportation sucks. Here, I spend maybe $18 a month on, the occasional taxi or tricycle, but I walk most everywhere, and, that alone saves me about $800 a month. Entertainment and social life in Miami was maybe another $500 to $600 a month, and this includes going out in Miami, but it's expensive. Drinks are $8 to $15 each. A decent dinner out is going to cost you $30 to $80 a person. Activities like movies and events, things like that are expensive. But here in the Philippines, beer, rum and coke, $1 to $2. A dinner out in a local place may cost you $3 to $8. A nice dinner in a Western restaurant, maybe $10 to $20. You can go to the beach for free. I spend less, and I arguably have more fun here. My total Miami budget was about $3,500 to $5,000 per month, and that was living modestly, nothing extravagant, just a normal apartment, nothing luxurious, cooking at home, eating out once in a while, going out with friends every so often, not excessively, but, if I wanted to live the way I live now in Cebu, back in Miami, in a nice downtown, nice building, eating out regularly with a social life with lots of friends, I'd spend $4,000 to $5,000 per month easily in Miami, at minimum. The comparison here in Cebu, I have a comfortable life for about $1,500 a month. In Miami, this same quality of life would have cost me $4,000 to $5,000 per month. I'm living a much better life here for a third of the cost. And my quality of life here is absolutely priceless. And this is my reality. So now let's talk about some different budget tiers here in the Philippines. You're probably wondering now, what can I get for different budget levels here in the Philippines? So let me break it down for you. So your modest budget, maybe $1,000 to $1,500 a month, or 50 to 85,000 pesos a month. Here's what you get. You might get a simple studio or a small apartment, maybe downtown, or a house outside the city center. Basic amenities, an older building, probably not furnished. You're going to be eating mostly local food, using fans mostly, and very minimal AC use. Probably public transportation like jeepneys or tricycles. You're going to be going out minimally. And this works for some people, like digital nomads that are on a tight budget, maybe retirees with a small pension, or people that, are they're willing to just live very basically and they like nature. Those who love local culture and immersion, that works for them. The reality is it's doable, but it's going to require sacrifices and, some adaptation. A comfortable budget is maybe $1,500 to $2,500, which is where I am at, 85 to 145,000 pesos. And what you get here is a decent apartment, 1 or 2 bedroom near the city center. You're going to have some amenities, maybe a gym and a pool, and you can enjoy a mix of local and Western food. Can pretty much run the AC when you want it, but maybe not 24 hours a day. Maybe taxi rides and Grab instead of public transportation, and even going out occasionally with your friends. Generally comfortable life. This works for most expats that want a comfortable life without necessarily having a whole lot of luxury. Maybe retirees that have a decent pension, or digital nomads that actually have a steady, stable income, or people that are balancing savings and a quality of life. The reality is that this is the sweet spot for most foreigners. You're not sacrificing much, and you're living pretty well. Your next tier is the upper middle, which is about 2,500 to 3,500 per month, which is 145 to 200,000 pesos. And in this tier, you're going to get a really nice condo in a prime location like BGC or Manila or downtown Cebu, something like that. You're going to have full amenities, gym, pool, security. You're going to be able to eat wherever you want, whether it's local or Western. Your AC is going to be on all the time, and you're either going to have a car or you're going to be using frequently Grab or taxis. You have an active social life, bars and restaurants, probably a gym membership, hobbies, and traveling, And this works for expats with a really good income, or retirees that have solid pensions. It also works for people who really want a Western lifestyle, living in comfort here in the Philippines. And the reality is, you're living very well at this level with almost absolutely no sacrifices. Now, luxury living is 3,500 above, and that's over 200,000 pesos. Now, here what you get is a luxury condo in Makati or BGC, or a premium spot in Cebu. You're going to have full Western lifestyle. You can eat imported food in high-end restaurants if you want to. You probably own a car. You're going to probably have premium health care and travel whenever you feel like it, and have various hobbies and social life with very little budgetary concerns. And this works for people that are high earners, wealthy retirees, or people who want a zero, they don't want to compromise anything in their lifestyle. And the reality is, you're living like upper class Filipino or expat elites here. And really, in this level, the sky's the limit for you. So here's what most of those budget videos don't tell you, and here are the costs that most people forget about and they don't mention in those videos. Number one, visa extensions. If you're planning to stay here long term, you're going to need to extend your tourist visa every 1 to 2 months, and that's going to cost you anywhere from 3,000 to 8,000 pesos per month, per extension rather, depending on the length of the extension. So you want to budget annual visa costs for about 20 to 40,000 pesos, which is about $350 to $700 a month, or a year rather. Number two, healthcare. Even if you're healthy, budget for these things. If you either have health insurance or doctor visits, going to run you 500 to 1,000 pesos a visit. Medications vary, and you want to plan for any unexpected illnesses. So a smart move here is to get travel insurance or have local health insurance, and budget about maybe 3 to 10,000 pesos per month, depending on your age and your coverage. Number 3, flights home. You might want to visit your family or travel, and flights aren't cheap. A flight from Manila to the U.S. is going to cost you about $2,000 round trip, depending on the season. So you want to budget, maybe 100,000 to 175,000 pesos per year, or $2,000 to $3,000, even if you only travel once or twice a year. Number 4, replacing items. Electronics break, clothes wear out, stuff happens. Budget 5 to 10,000 pesos per year, for replacements and unexpected repairs. Number 5, family expectations, and this applies if you're dating a Filipina seriously. And again, this doesn't apply to all Filipinas and all cities and all families, but there will probably be some financial expectations with the family at some point. If you don't want her to work, then many expats, they give their partner an allowance. You're going to probably have to help with family emergencies or contribute to family needs. There's going to be celebrations like birthdays, Christmas, Noche Buena. And this section varies wildly, but budget 10 to 20,000 pesos per month if you're dating somebody seriously. Now, these hidden costs can add 25 to 50,000 pesos per month, which is about $400 to $850 a month. So budget. That $1,000 per month suddenly becomes, $1,500 to $2,500 per month when you actually factor in the reality of living here. So how do you live smart in the Philippines, and how do you stretch your money even further? Well, here's a few tips for you. Number 1, eat local food. Filipino food is delicious and it's cheap. Street food, the carenderias, local eateries, you can eat well for, 200 to 400 pesos per day. Now, that savings alone versus eating Western food constantly, it could be 15 to 30,000 pesos per month. Number 2, live outside major cities. Don't live in the heart of Manila and Cebu. They're both much more expensive. Provincial cities or smaller towns, they offer, huge savings. Savings on rent alone could be 15 to 30,000 pesos per month. Number 3, skip the car. Cars are expensive here. You got to purchase it, gas, maintenance, insurance, and it's actually kind of dangerous to drive here. I've lived here 2 years and I've never had a car and I've been fine. And that's saving you 20 to 40,000 pesos a month. Number 4, use fans and limit the AC. The AC is your biggest electrical cost here, and doing that alone can save you 3 to 5,000 pesos per month. Number 5, shop at the wet market. You're going to get fresh produce, fresh meat, seafood. It's much cheaper, maybe 30 to 50% cheaper than the, supermarkets. And that can save you 3 to 5,000 pesos a month as well. Number 6, drink local alcohol. San Miguel beer and Tanduay rum, it's cheap and it's really good. Imported beer, wine, alcohol, they're expensive here. And that alone can save you 5 to 10,000 pesos a month if you drink regularly. And number 7, embrace the Filipino lifestyle. The more you adapt to local life and, the less you spend, and honestly, the richer your experience is going to be. You're going to feel happier and much more at peace here. So, can you really live in the Philippines for $1,000 a month? Yes, but it requires sacrifices that most Westerners aren't willing to make long term, and a lot of times they don't even realize it until they get here. And my honest recommendation is, budget $1,500 to $2,500 per month for a comfortable life. That gives you flexibility, it gives you some comfort, and it gives you, a little room for unexpected costs. And you compare that to, $4,000 to $5,000 per month for the same lifestyle back in the U.S., and the Philippines is still an incredible value. Not to mention, your quality of life is 1,000,000 times better than it is, back in a major city in the U.S. You don't have to live like a monk here. You can have AC. You can eat well, you can go out, you can enjoy your life, all for a fraction of what you'd spend back home in the U.S. or in the West, period. So there you have it. that's the real story, and that's all I have for you today. Do me a favor, tell me, what's your budget? What are you spending if you're here in the Philippines? And what surprised you about these numbers that I just gave you? Drop a comment. I do read every one of them, and I try to respond as many as I can. And if you're new here, hit that subscribe button for, honest talk about, life here in the Philippines. There's no clickbait, just reality. So that's all I got. Salamat, and I'll see you next time.